you call the cops? Call the cops? Call St. J Trooper. So there was an incident that happened last night on the farm, and I feel like I need to address it and tell you guys my side of the story of what happened, because admittedly things got a little out of hand last night. Release the Kraken! So last night around 11:30ish p.m. I was asleep, Allison was asleep, we were done for the day, and then all of a sudden I heard Mr. Toby Dog freak the heck out. And look, Toby's a livestock guardian dog. Him barking at night is not unusual. But the unusual part was it was accompanied by the sound of another dog that was surprisingly close, and it was a bark quite unlike any other dog bark that I've heard around here in a while. And so because that dog bark sounded so close, I sprung out of bed in my underwear and t-shirt and threw on my farm boots, and I ran outside because something was clearly going on and I needed to check it out. So I got outside and I was confronted with the sight of a couple people with flashlights coming right through this part of the farm here, right down by our brook, not too far from the road, but definitely a place where people running around with dogs should not be. And so as I saw those folks, like I said, somewhere around here, I was over by our house over there. So I also noticed a couple vehicles down by the side of the road, flashlights going, more dogs barking. And so while these guys were wandering around here in the woods looking for the dog, I decided to go over there to just try to see what the heck was going on. When I got there, I was confronted with 3 dudes with ages and BMIs well over 40, as well as this one woman who, I don't know, she might have even been a teenager still in high school. I asked them what the heck was going on, and one of them said that they were on a coon hunt and their dogs were running through the woods here. I immediately said, hey guys, this is private property. You don't have my permission and you need to leave.
Hey, this is a private residence, man.
And the first guy I was talking to said, oh, well, don't talk to me. I'm here with the guide. He's responsible for that. And so I immediately then said, well, which of you guys is the guide? And this one guy by the name of Rob raised his hand and said that he was. And I said the same exact thing to him, that this is private property. I'm asking you guys to leave now. And the folks who were out there basically looked at me like I was crazy. And to a certain extent, I might have seemed crazy. I mean, here I was waking up from deep sleep in my underwear, and I was shining a flashlight at him and I was yelling, and I was not a happy camper. The geese were starting to freak out, Toby Dog was starting to freak out, and for the middle of nowhere, Vermont, it was a lot of chaos for 11:30 at night. And they said, well, the dog's in the woods, we can't control the dogs. We got one guy in there and he's trying to bring the dog back, but yeah, the dogs were chasing an animal onto your property. He also then said that he had permission to hunt on this land, and I said, buddy, that cannot be the case. I'm the landowner. I did not give you permission. And then he explained that he was the nephew of my neighbor and that my neighbor had given him permission. And I felt like this need to explain to the dude that my neighbor could give him permission to hunt on his land, but my neighbor lacks the ability to give him permission to hunt on my land. And then that's where this guy, whose name was Rob, who was the guide, decided to play the I'm the local card and said, hey, listen, butthead, I've been hunting this land long before you ever came here. And I will admit, I think that was the comment above all else that was sort of the tipping point.
What are you looking at, butthead? Say hi to your mom for me.
The sense of entitlement and ownership that this gentleman felt and the freedom to come and go as he pleased across our farm absolutely made me livid. And so it was at this point that I ran back inside and felt like I needed to grab a video camera of some sort to document this chaos. And I asked Allison to call the cops. And so me and my flashlight and my video camera came back out, continuing to ask these people to leave. They continued to root through here. Their hunting dog was running all around here and up around the fence line over here. Poor Toby Dog was terrified and going absolutely bonkers, trying to scare away the hounds that were running around here. It's okay, bud. It's okay, bud. It's okay, bud. Hey, it's okay. It's just me. It's just me. Sounds like it's back there.
That's her. She's apologized. I thought it was all right. You know what I mean?
No, it's definitely not okay. I got a duck and goose farm. We got free-range ducks and geese on the other side of this fence.
I'm sorry about that. The guy should have known that. Come here, Annie.
Like, I'd never seen him actually go that crazy. I was worried he might try to jump the fence and hurt himself.
He just jumped the fence.
But luckily, Toby Dog's a good boy and has been trained to not do that sort of thing. And because I wasn't prepared exactly for this type of situation, about 2 minutes into recording the whole incident on my GoPro, the battery died because I hadn't charged it fully for the night. And so I didn't capture most of the interaction. But while there was one guy around here still looking for his dog and trying to catch it, and it was running around the yard and going all over the place, I went back down there to continue to ask those folks to leave. And it was at this point that the teenage girl, she decided to get mixed up in this whole discussion. And she started yelling at me saying, "We have a right. I learned this in school. I studied law in school. I know that we have a right. You can't tell us to leave. We can't control the dogs." And even though my video camera wasn't going at the time, I still had it in my hand, and I swear I wish it was still going, because it was quite the intense and crazy rant that this woman was going on. Meanwhile, while all this conversation's going on, the dog is still out here somewhere running around. Allison was on the front porch on the phone with the state troopers. The dog was running by her. She was seeing it go everywhere. It was going crazy all around the farmyard. Toby Dog was freaking the heck out. The geese were wigging the heck out. And I was really wondering myself, how the heck does something like this even happen? And it really was at this point that I was starting to get very frustrated with the whole situation. I mean, think about it, right? I've got a farm. I've got geese and ducks that are free ranging and are not locked up at night inside that fenced in area. I have a livestock guardian dog. A decent element of my livelihood is wrapped up with what's going on around that farm as a farmer here in an area that's generally known as an agricultural area. And well, honestly, something like this happens because we're caught in a few quirks of Vermont state hunting laws. So probably most notable and important and even somewhat distinct to Vermont is, around here, hunters can go on private property as long as the land is not posted. And by posted, I mean you have to put these little signs up every 400 feet around your property border that say it's posted and it's illegal to hunt. And you can't just put those signs up once. You actually have to update and date those signs once a year. And furthermore, you actually have to go to your town clerk and register your land as posted. So as a landowner with about 160 acres, it's a little tricky to maintain all the boundaries. In the fall, I will usually go around the property once a year and update the dates on all of my signs and replace signs that have fallen down, because they always fall down. And I'll make the trek into the town clerk's office and update the posting status. But I gotta say, as a landowner, it's exceptionally onerous to manage that process. And usually every time I'm posting around the farm here, it takes me a good chunk of a day to do the entire circuit and update all of the signs. And I'm an able-bodied guy who's able to do that sort of thing. I can't imagine the burden that something like that is for an older person or a disabled person who owns some land, who has to update all their boundary markers on an annual basis just because they don't want a bunch of strangers running around their property with guns and dogs. And then the other quirk that happens around here in Vermont is that, you know, hound hunting with dogs is legal. So there's a season where bear hunting is legal, where people will take a bunch of hounds and they'll go around the woods trying to flush out bears and chase bears up trees. Raccoon hunting is also legal. So for example, the folks who were here last night, they had a bunch of dogs running around and they were trying to get their dogs to chase raccoons up trees, and then they kill those raccoons and do God knows what with them, because there really isn't a market for pelts anymore and nobody really likes to eat raccoon meat. And then the other factor that's at play here is that the way these folks are out there hunting with their dogs, they're not like with their dogs. What they do is they put these like GPS radio collars on the dogs and they set them loose.
Well, guys, I guess we walked him.
Yeah, it's kind of like the dogs that you saw in the movie Up.
Soon enough, the bird will be ours yet again.
And so the phenomenon that ends up happening during raccoon season and bear season is that there's people flying up and down our road, driving some crazy speeds, looking at GPS monitors, watching where their dogs are and seeing if their dog trees an animal. Treeing an animal is where they like chase the animal up the tree and they have it trapped up the tree. that's when the hunter wants to find the dog so that they can go get the animal. So these people are allowed to set dogs loose, unsupervised, and let them roam the land trying to chase animals. And as it was shown in the incident from last night, it's not like the dogs are gonna respect property borders or the fact that there's a posted sign at one spot versus another. The dogs are just gonna go where they have animals, which gets back to that point that the folks down by the road were making to me, that they weren't responsible, they can't control the dogs, which is absolutely ludicrous to me. I mean, the idea that you could set an animal loose and you can create havoc and you can run animals in the middle of the night around somebody's property and then slough off your accountability is just insane. But that was precisely the situation that we had on our hands. So after about 20 minutes, apparently the guy who owned the dog was able to corral the dog, and they got into their trucks and they quickly drove off, probably about 5 minutes before the game warden and the state troopers showed up at our farm. And when I say state troopers, they showed up in force. I mean, there was the game warden's truck, and then I think there were like 2 or 3 different state trooper vehicles that showed up here. And I got to admit, they were actually awesome. They were very helpful. They really looked into the situation. They did a lookup to check the licenses of the guy who was the guide. They also actually went and searched the area a little bit to try to find them, to kind of find out what happened from their perspective. And you know, they made a record of the incident, and I'm hoping I don't have to deal with future incidents like this. Because to be honest, the fact that it just happened this one time isn't that big a deal. But lately I've been hearing the hounds a lot. You know, the other night I actually even made a TikTok where there was an animal that might have been on our property, might have been just over the border at a neighbor's spot.
There was this mystery noise. I have no idea what it was, but it kept going. I don't know if that was like another dog or a coyote or like a moose or a deer or something, but it just kept going over and over again, and it lasted for about 40 minutes or so. I was outside there in the rain looking around trying to figure out what it was, and I had no clue. Toby Dog was freaked out. Pablo Barncat was very concerned. I don't know if anybody hears this, but if you have any guesses on what this mystery noise was, please let me know down in the comments.
And it's just such a disruptive thing that's happening. And so I stand here this morning at 7 o'clock as I record this for you guys, and I am completely exhausted. The troopers ended up leaving the farm probably, I don't know, 12:30, quarter to 1. It was well past 2 o'clock before my adrenaline went down, and I was back up here and out here around 5:30, and so I think I need to go inside and take a nap, but I'm not really sure what to do here. On one hand, I am very much self-aware enough to say, oh, look at the city slicker guy freaking out about a practice that's been going on for a very long time around here. But on the other hand, I gotta say, if I'm taking a critical eye to Vermont's hunting and wildlife laws, this is a real problem. I mean, especially when you consider the approach that these guys were using with the GPS collars and not really supervising the dogs is quite different than how it would have gone down 50 years ago, or maybe even 10 years ago. And I really think there needs to be some changes and updates to Vermont wildlife laws. You know, over the last couple of years, there's been some serious incidents where hunting hounds have attacked hikers, have attacked other people's dogs. There's been serious injuries, there's been other animal deaths. And as a Vermont resident, it really does have me wanting to try to, frankly, make an impact on some of the Vermont hunting laws. And so who knows, maybe I'll make a follow-up video in the future about that one. I'm curious to get everybody's take on this. So leave it down in the comments. And I also want to be very crystal clear around the idea that, number one, I'm not anti-hunting. I actually believe that hunting is an important part of managing the local ecosystems here. My concerns and grievances lie with the approach to hunting and how it's being done, and the rules and controls and protections that are either too relaxed or don't exist. So end of story and rant. I'm gonna go try to finish my chores and then go take a nap.